Let's go, Rider Nation.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Get the feeling now. Get 'em high, get 'em low. 'Cause we're dealing now. Everybody's giving it all they got. 'Cause we're ready.
Welcome to the Piffles podcast, your Saskatchewan Roughriders fan podcast. As always, you got me. I'm Alex.
I'm Steve.
And if I'm John Murphy, I'm renting, not buying, because it's a wild week in Toronto.
How does he still have a job? My God.
It's a coming.
The Argos might have bungled that just as well, maybe not as bad as the whole Chad Kelly thing. We'll talk about that a little bit later. My God, what a mess. What a mess. Anyway.
There's no other way to describe it.
Yeah. Mess is the polite way to put it that it can actually go on SaskTel Max.
Mess is also the greatest Vancouver captain of all time for the Canucks, by the way.
And he go.
And that's going to ruin our guests' night. We'll bring on our guest here right away. Give us a follow on X at Piffles Pod. You can give me a follow at Real Alex D.
You'll find me at Safamod.
And as always, I do not need nor want your pity follows at Greg on Sports.
Check us out on Facebook as well, too. And, of course, the website, pifflespodcast.com. Thanks for listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, watching on YouTube or SaskTel Max TV on demand. We appreciate it. Piffles Podcast is brought to you by Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sask Drive in Regina. And I'm telling you, with training camp happening this weekend, starting up, within a couple weeks when the Riders are back in Regina, Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sask Drive is going to be frequent. Like, I'm going to be there quite frequently.
That new peach cobbler blizzard.
How was that?
Top tier, like top notch. It's right there.
The cotton candy one still slaps.
I had the Rolo one the last time I went there. Just, you can't miss, honestly. But we got a lot to get to. We're going to do our training camp preview to help us out with that. We're going to be joined here in a minute by host of the Green Zone on CJME and CKOM, Jamie Nye. We're dubbing him the training camp guy. I hope, I don't know if that works against trademarks or anything. We'll find out. Let's bring him on. Let's do the opening kickoff. Mr. Jamie Nye, how are you?
A Mark Messier dig right at the start, eh? You're going to start with the Mark Messier dig. You invite me on, and all of a sudden I hear a Mark Messier, and it's the Oilers Canucks getting going on Wednesday night, and you bring the Messier garbage right off the top. I would expect more from you. No, actually,
no. I was going to say, whoa. Obviously, you don't listen.
Wrong.
You're not one of the seven, man.
If it makes you feel better, I hope the Canucks win in 4 because I hate the Oilers.
Okay.
So hopefully that
can agree with that.
Is the Battle of Messier's rights, or what is this series anyway?
This
is the Messier Cup, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. You call it the Messier Cup. I was trying to think of another former player who's played on both teams, but the most famous is probably Mark Messier, I'd assume.
Great captain or greatest captain, really. Let's be honest.
There's only one captain in Canucks history. It's Trevor Linden, and let's never forget it. Okay? There we go.
Well, there's your weekly hockey talk here on the Piffles podcast.
How are your Penguins doing, by the way, guys? How are your Penguins?
See, that's why I'm cheering for the Canucks right now.
Yeah, we got a good draft spot. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, we traded that away too.
You traded it to San Jose.
I know. San Jose, oh my Lord, 1st and 14th. Not bad for them.
Talk about what a mess the Argos are. The Penguins are just the same.
Well,
wouldn't you love
on the ice
to be in the offices of the Toronto Argonauts, looking around, going, did we dodge a bullet here within the offices? Because if you're going to suspend Chad Kelly with all the other stuff that it's alleged to have taken place around this, how are they going to keep everything else internal when talking to the Toronto Argonauts? Like, come on, no. Full disclosure, what is happening? There are other people who deserve to get it outside of Chad Kelly. Chad Kelly is enemy number one, there's no doubt. But they also broke the rules. Anyways, I digress.
Let's get into this. We're going to talk about this.
Let's start with that. Yeah, we're going to talk.
Yeah, we were going to talk about this later. Let's get into it. So he's suspended for minimum 9 games, and that's of course if he goes through this sensitivity training and courses and blah 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 that they're going to make him do. And if he's deemed like he's done well enough, he can get reinstated. But minimum 9 games, is that enough? Because that's, in terms of the CFL, like that's a huge punishment.
It is a massive punishment. When
you look at when he got 300,000 up front, like, don't get me wrong, game wise, yes, but I don't know how much of an actual punishment it is.
I don't think you can base it on money up front because that's just the reality of the Canadian Football League. But for a minimum of 9 game suspension, that is significant. I compare it to some of the suspensions we've seen in the National Football League, and you get a 4-game suspension. Sometimes you're on the commissioner's list for an entire year. Absolutely. That's for those who got videotapes actually making physical contact with people in hallways or in elevators. We've seen that. And this is an abusive, harassing situation, allegedly. And well, clearly the CFL has reasonable grounds to say it's that significant. So I think 9 was appropriate. It's one of the harshest penalties in Canadian Football League history. So I think that's appropriate. Now, will Chad Kelly put all the work in, or is he going to be the next Johnny Manziel who doesn't and is, I don't know, what's Johnny Manziel doing? Autograph signings now in Texas or something like that?
Is this the right time to bring up the fact I have a signed Johnny Manziel football, or should I save that for later? It says comeback season on it.
Well, I'm waiting for that season.
By the way, it might happen.
Yeah, it might happen
One day.
Eventually.
One day.
We're still coming.
So Chad can obviously still appeal this, which I'm assuming he probably will.
His agent's already said he's going to.
And we've seen appeal processes happen before with Simone Lawrence, AJ Gass years ago. And those were pretty cut and dry situations. If he does appeal this, Jamie, how long do you think the appeal process would go? And he would be able to participate with the Argos unless they suspend him, of course, which
there's no way. If he appeals it, there's no chance the Toronto Argonauts are letting him step foot on the field. There's no way. I don't think Michael Pinball Clemens would allow that to happen. Or the commissioner says, no, okay, you can appeal, you can get paid, but you're like in a commissioner's exempt list, like in the National Football League, where they got paid, but they weren't allowed to be taking part in team activities. So if that's the way it goes, there's no chance he sees the field at all during the process. It'll play out probably to the point of 9 games when that would actually be resolved anyways when it comes to this. So then you go, what's the point? And rather than drag it all out again and through and have even more reports on what was actually said and done and all that other stuff, it might even make him look worse than he already looks for Chad Kelly. So if I'm advising him, I'd be like, no, let's not appeal this, because the third party investigator clearly found grounds to suspend, and that's where we're at. So
now,
and hey man, you already made your $300,000 with the signing bonus anyways.
We've seen people online already compare the two because they happen so close together. We're seeing people compare the Sean Lemon suspension, the permanent suspension of a retired player, versus the situation with Chad Kelly, and trying to compare the two. I'd love to hear your thoughts on those comparisons.
I have a tough time comparing everything around, like from one thing to the other, because I look at this situation. Have we ever seen this before? I don't think we've ever seen this one before. Nope. This is brand new. This is employee to employee. It's a female employee with Chad Kelly, and it's verbal harassment, and it's just, I think it's a whole different game with Chad Kelly. So I think with the way the CFL has set this precedent, it's a healthy precedent to set, because any policy that the CFL's ever done has always been like a paper tiger. Does it actually matter? And this the gender-based violence policy, they showed it clearly is going to have some teeth. You know what around and find out if you violate this policy, which is good, because I'm happy the Canadian Football League has a policy like this one. It's a healthy policy to have. So that's good on him for making an example of Chad Kelly. Although I don't even think it's an example. It's just doing the right thing.
But even if he does, let's say he doesn't appeal and he goes 9 games, that return back, which I believe is going to be against the Riders.
That's right.
Of course it is.
Properly,
That just makes sense. Yeah.
it's going to be an absolute circus. Can the league actually bring him back, rehabilitated or not?
Well, my
he's
question
going to have
is,
to
do
do
the
a
Toronto
giant media tour
Argonauts
to get this right.
My thing is, should the Toronto Argonauts even trust him? Should they even trust him to come back as their franchise guy? This is not an out of the blue. Oh my, Chad Kelly did something wrong. Oh my good, I can't believe it.
Knock me down with a feather.
Exactly, because Chad Kelly has a history, unfortunately. Anger management issues, bar fights, all this other stuff. He was kicked off teams and suspended from teams. It's just like Chad Kelly can't get out of his own way. He's clearly got some things to deal with. So if you're the Toronto Argonauts, or if you're anybody in the CFL, I don't think you trust him to pay him $300,000 or whatever it is to be your franchise guy. I just don't think you can do it. But wins and losses in Toronto matter right now, and until they find the next guy, they might just, for the rest of this season, just grit their teeth and see it to the end. But that might be the end for Chad Kelly.
Last one here on Chad Kelly. Do you think there's a coincidence or not that they announced this the day before rookie camp started, when players start to report, quarterbacks will be there throwing, and of course, coaches and probably general managers are going to be speaking to media, where I know there's not a lot of coverage in Toronto, but with something like this hanging over them, obviously they would have to ask him about it. You announce something the day before the suspension, or the league does anyway. If you're the Argos, you can just say, you know what, we accept the league's decision, wipe our hands clean, we move on. Do you think there's any kind of coincidence so that they don't have to answer this throughout training camp?
I think this was the deadline for the league. When this happened, I said, can you have this guy play until and then suspend him 4 games into the season? I think that's a bad look. I think this was absolutely, the timing was, we have to make a decision by this date, because we can't have this linger into the season and into the preseason and have this complete distraction. And especially if they found out and I bet you the deadline was last week before training camp for this investigation to have some sort of resolution, so Randy Ambrosie can say, give his final say on what was going to happen. I don't think this is a coincidence at all. This was the deadline to make sure, if there was going to be any distraction, that it was dealt with before the Toronto Argonauts broke training camp and he's throwing passes to rookies tomorrow. So now they don't have to worry about that.
But the Argos have already gone on record saying that pinball is not going to be, we're recording this on Tuesday. Pinball is not going to be available until Thursday. Why not just rip the Band-Aid off and get it over with on Wednesday?
Yeah, because that's when the Leafs are. Thursday is when the Leafs are doing their
Friday,
managers.
They're doing it Friday.
They moved it. Yeah. That's right.
They moved it to Friday so Keith Pelly could show up and say, "Hey, everybody, here we go." So that's on Friday now. But Now pinball has his own day to make news. I want Randy Ambrosie. If this was the National Football League, Roger Goodell is having a news conference. He is available. When he suspended Tom Brady, it's not like there was a news release with a couple of quotes from Randy Ambrosie.
Yeah, I remember.
Roger Goodell. And and then all of a sudden it was, okay, bye, Commissioner. It's like, no, he explained what was going on, and this is my decision and why I came to this decision, and away they went. So I'm surprised the CFL didn't have Randy Ambrosie available to Toronto media today. It makes no sense to have this drop and not get in front of the cameras and get out in front of it.
But also very on brand for the CFL as well, too. This is something that they usually try to just sweep under the rug and hopefully it goes away and let's focus on football because football is back. And yeah, that's how I always kind of saw it happening. So I don't know.
This league, man, they need to get out. Bad, good, ugly, whatever it is. They need to be out in front of Toronto media. They need to be there. They need to have the cameras there so TSN shows the footage and has the coverage rather than just here's a news release and now you get Dave Naylor and Farhan on the cameras. Like that's talking about it. Like you need to be out in front of everything, good, bad, or indifferent in the Canadian Football League, and they rarely are. Even when it's good news, they're rarely in front of it. It's like everybody, all their partners and all their podcasters and everybody else who follows the league gives them the attention, but it's not like they're going out and seeking the attention, which is exactly the problem of why the National Football League is ruling now across Canada, is because the NFL gets out in front of everything. They will have a news conference when Roger Goodell farts, for crying out loud, it feels like, just to get their name out there. Hey, things have been quiet. We should really do something. Okay, it just seems like they're always in the news. And the CFL, like I was thinking the last month, it's been pretty dead quiet around the Canadian Football League. And then the draft happens. It was like, oh yeah, the CFL draft. Oh, okay, here we go. Totally forgot the CFL existed for about a month. But it's always the issue in the Canadian Football League, unfortunately. Someday they'll get it together when they make Greg boss.
Hey, first thing I do, CFL week is back, baby.
If only for me to run a 40-yard dash again.
Well, the real reason we actually brought you on here was to talk training camp, riders, get your outlook on the team this year. And we will do that. I have one more quick question that goes before that. This offseason, there was a lot of talk about rule changes, particularly in kickoffs. My question to you is, why is the tuck rule your favorite rule?
Are you really trying to get me to hang up? Like, this is amazing work. This is amazing work on. You have one. You got to have one more. Do you have one more? Do you want to like break my heart with the highlight? Do you have highlights already cut up of the 1994 Game 7 of the New York Rangers over the Vancouver Canucks, or any Brad Marchand punching the Sedins in the face, or what do you got?
I actually thought of getting your picture of you in the grass skirt that you used to wear to Rider games, but.
Oh, that wouldn't embarrass me. I love that photo. It was on the front page of my local newspaper, so whatever. My grandma had it framed, for crying out loud, in her house.
Amazing. That's amazing. All right. Well, green and white. Rookie camps begin on Wednesday. Training camps begin on Sunday. We've made it. The offseason is finally done. Riders, what positional group are you looking forward to seeing the most?
Well, is it lame to just go left tackle? Is that lame?
We've been talking tackles for like two seasons.
Couple years.
Tackle away.
Because we know who the right tackle is. We know that's Jermarcus Hardrick. We know it's Ryan Sevier, Logan Furland, Philip Blake, Peter Godber as the three interior guys. Maybe Zach Fry gets in there too in the mix. Who's playing left tackle? Who's protecting the blind side? I'm interested in who's even actually still coming. Like, usually there's like a few days before camp, you get a news release and like 20 guys just all of a sudden are cut. And it's like, oh, never mind. I guess Gerald Hawkins isn't coming to camp. Let's see who else they have. But how many American tackles do they have on the roster right now? it feels like at least 8 from what they've announced.
I have the list. There's Jacob Brammer. There's Brandon Council, but it sounds like he's not going to be coming up. Dimitri Emmanuel, Gerald Hawkins, Demarcus Hardrick, Jonathan Hubbard, Sedarius Hutcherson, Trevor Reed, and Jordan Tucker are the tackles that are being brought in. Those are the American O-linemen. So there's, outside of Hardrick, there's 7 guys vying for one spot.
Yeah. And so that's going to be right away. First day, who do they have lined up at left tackle with the starting group? And how does that morph over the weeks going into that first preseason game and then the second preseason game? And then that third week, who do they have slotted in? That is, I think, a no-brainer one. Okay, left tackle. Give me receiver all day long. There's openings here for receiver, and that's way more sexy to talk about and watch at training camp than offensive line and defensive line play. Because you bring in, or at least you've signed Geronimo Allison, who's the sexy NFL name that people might have had on their fantasy football roster for like a week and a half when he was with the Green Bay Packers. Yeah, with the Packers. But how's Jarrett Stearns come in? He's here. He's practicing with the guys at Mosaic, so that's going to be a good sign. Kendall Watson has some experience from last year, but they brought in a lot of American guys. And so you have Sean Bain Jr., you have the 2 Canadians that are locked in MLS and Kean Schaefer-Baker. And from there, those other 2 spots are wide open, in my opinion. Are they going to go 3 American, 3 Canadian? How do they balance the ratio in that receiver core? I'm extremely interested to see if they have found some, I think, found some guys who probably will light people up more than Jarrett Stearns and Kendall Watson. But who knows what they do in their second year. So,
but you kind of touched on with the ratio, though. Why not go to 4 Canadians on that line? Ferland can play tackle. Blake can play tackle. Why are we keep on trying to retread Americans in there that just haven't been able to cut it like a Hawkins or a Council if he does come back?
Yeah, I understand that. I was on the Philip Blake for right tackle all season long last year. Like, the guy started left tackle for the Toronto Argonauts for the final half of their season 2 years ago when they won the Grey Cup. He started at left tackle in the Grey Cup, for crying out loud. And I'm like, you guys are struggling to find tackles, and you have ones just sitting right here. Logan Ferland bounced out to the right tackle spot. He looked comfortable at right tackle. He's played there. He's got the length to do it. I just don't know if they have the depth at Canadian offensive line right now to pull off 4. Because if one guy gets injured, then you're scrambling to put another American in. And plus, I think they already have the depth Canadians. They have Dalkey. They have Auclair. Who knows what they do rotational on the defensive line at all with Charbel DeBeer and mix in Lake Corte Moore. They can go 3 Canadian receivers. They're okay right now with their 7 starting Canadians. They're not desperate to find that other guy. So I understand it. It's the American bias, I think, as well at tackle in the Canadian Football League, like there is at quarterback and some of the receiver spots, and this defensive backs on the short side. It's just that's where your Americans play, and that's how it happens. So I don't think they'll go 4 Canadian on the offensive line, but could see 3 Canadian in the receiving core now that they've drafted 3 more Canadians in the draft this past week.
Now, every training camp comes around, we always see a couple of guys like a Deontay Williams or Jarrett Stearns, players that become names in and around Saskatchewan. Is there a guy on the roster right now that Rider fans may not have heard of yet that you think has the potential to be that next household name?
Well, there's a few guys who were here last year. Like if Rodney Clemens comes in and shows well, but I think one of the best, and he was under the radar in BC, was Jalen Edwards Cooper in the defense. And I'm going to the defensive secondary because I think with Nick Marshall getting thrown out. Is he in prison, by the way? Did we ever find out what the heck happened with Nick Marshall?
I don't think we know.
No, but
not as of 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, but when you look at defensive backs, I think there are jobs to be won there, and they have brought in enough guys to really challenge for defensive secondary positions.
There's 22 DBs on the roster right now.
Yeah.
And even after free agency, I was thinking there's really only one spot open because you have Jalen Edwards-Cooper, you have probably Ford or Dalkey, probably rotation at safety. Obviously, Ford's hurt now, but now maybe safety's a big question mark. Roland Milligan, if he's healthy enough to start right off the bat, seems like a no-brainer to start him. Amari Henderson, Deontay Williams, like there doesn't seem to be a lot of room.
Okay, are you convinced on Amari Henderson?
See, and that's what I started thinking about once they kept on adding more guys, and especially like with I think it's Antoine Brooks and Holton Hill with all the NFL experience that they have, that I don't think that there's a.
Well, they like Mark Fields out of Clemson. I know they like Mark Fields out of Clemson as a guy they brought in. So, and so I think they're pushing guys. I think Roland Milligan's got to be a lock. I really like Deontay Williams and Jalen Edwards-Cooper, you'd think, but this is full-on competition. Then this is exactly what Corey Mace promised. This is full-on competition. Let's bring you in. We're going to put the best guys on the field. That's it. And that's the way they have to be. There can't be anything given just because you've been here for 3 years anymore. That was happening here with Craig Dickinson. Nick Marshall. Okay, he's been here. He's a loyal guy and really cheering for him because he's been a rider for a while. It's like, no, cut bait on these guys if they're just, they're okay. You can't have okay. Okay's not going to win you championships in the Canadian Football League. So they brought in a lot of competition in the defensive secondary, and I can't wait to see how it all shakes out. Because I'm not even convinced is Deontay Williams actually a lock. I think I liked him last year, but maybe he's not. So again,
he was good until he went to the. Williams was good until he went to the Nick Marshall School of Tackling, because by the end of the season, he was just not taking guys down anymore.
And that's like, and Corey Mace will cut you. Like if you're not willing to get your nose dirty. I love when Corey Mace talks and he talks about violence when he talks about his team. What are the characteristics you want? And he go right away, violence. Like that's, he goes, tough, aggressive, and violence. Like he kind of gives that, ugh. And so that's where I'm at with these players. That's what he wants to see. And I think they've brought in a lot bigger guys in the secondary to challenge. Like Amari Henderson's not that big a dude to go in there. So we'll see. Like you brought up Marcus Murphy and some of these other guys, like these are bigger DBs that are they're not going to be afraid to show up come training camp. Unfortunately, you rarely get to hit. So we'll have to wait for that game on the 20th for the actual contact to happen.
What happens at safety then with Jackson Ford being hurt? Are they going to go Dalkey and possibly Lacombo? Or do you think that that's one of those open spots right now with the Steve's got his big Dalkey energy going on.
Well, look at all the non-import defensive backs they're bringing in too. They've gone out and found guys, and I think that's because they knew Jackson Ford was injured. We just found out about it. This has probably been an injury they've known about for a while. So you still have the Onyekas, you still have Lacombo. They brought in Sorello Brown as a free agent, and then you sign Catley Joseph as well. So they got some depth there, and it'll be interesting to see. Does CJ Rivas and Godfrey Onyeka, they're kind of that Sam linebacker safety hybrid that mix and matches, but I don't know how much mix and matching we're going to see with Corey Mace compared to what we saw with Chris Jones and Jason Shivers over the last few years. But they have depth there. It'll be a Canadian spot. It'll be Jason Dalkey's spot. And then from there, I'm really interested. I want Nelson Lacombo to be healthy, man. Like he was a second overall pick. And with the Huskies, he was outstanding. So if he's healthy, I think you still can look at Nelson Lacombo if he can finally stay healthy and get consistency and get the good coaching, that he might be able to use that athleticism. And like his brother, it took Bo some time too to really find himself in the Canadian Football League to turn into an all-star caliber linebacker.
Now, you mentioned people like Amari Henderson. Every year at the end of training camp, we see guys get cut that may shock, the people of Saskatchewan, names again that they're familiar with. Are there any other guys other than Henderson that you see that are on the bubble that may be looking for work come the end of the preseason?
I was going through the depth chart, and I don't have a guy that stands out of going that would shock anybody. Like, yeah, there's Amari Henderson would probably be, well, I've already talked, like, as early as he that locked in, maybe even a Deontay Williams, but I go up and down this roster, and I don't think there's many, unless they find a tackle and they go, okay, Micah Johnson, thanks for your service. But they re-signed him, so I'd be shocked even at that. But that's about it for me, because there's I don't know if you guys have looked up and down and gone, oh, I think this guy's I just don't see it. Not with, I think they've gotten rid of all the guys that were on the bubble already that go, okay, yeah, we're going to move on from you in this one. And trust, and when they lose 7 straight in the last 2 seasons, would anybody be surprised if anybody gets cut, really?
So
Mason Fine.
They're bringing
I guess
anybody
Mason
back.
Fine. Mason Fine might, but I don't know if anybody would be surprised if Mason Fine gets cut or would be shocked or anything like that. But maybe
I think more.
I guess that
I
might
think
be
more
a
people were
surprise.
surprised that they kept mine over Dalagala. I think everyone expected that to be the other way around. I think signing Fine was more of a surprise than if he gets cut.
Yeah. There was different internal analytical things that they noticed in Jake Dolagala's game that we don't notice because we just like big guy throw far. Yay. Like that's where our mind goes to. But I think the timing, his decision-making, the quick stuff that you have to do to read. I think they like Mason Fine's quick decision-making. And yes, there was a lot of checkdowns, but sometimes a checkdown is the right call. And where Jake Dolagala was probably more of the, I'm going to sit back here and see what comes free and throw it up and see what happens. And
the white Michael Bishop, like I've been calling him.
Michael Bishop. I think Jake Dolagala is a little better than Michael Bishop.
A little
slightly. Better? Probably doesn't throw it as far though as Michael Bishop.
He does
like
not.
That guy could chuck it. Like when Weston Dresser goes to the Hall of Fame is announced, and you instantly think of the play in the Banjo Bowl. When you just have Michael Bishop getting back there and just launching it as far as he can, just to see what happens, and Weston Dresser getting underneath it.
Quarterbacks, we haven't talked about them yet. Is there a spot on the roster for both Shea Patterson and Mason Fine?
There shouldn't be. This is year 2 here for Shea Patterson. It's year 4 for Mason Fine. And if it's not Shea Patterson, if he's not beating out Mason Fine, why are you keeping him? There's no Mason Fine seems like he is the placeholder. You want to you have him here as the guy we think is okay. He's not exceptional. We don't think he's probably the future of the franchise, but he's the placeholder. And now you're bringing guys in to see, are they better? Can they beat him? Is there more there? Then see a Mason Fine buy. That's where I look at the quarterback position. And I hope that they find somebody that I think Rider Nation needs somebody to go. And I think they leaned on Jake Dolagala going, oh, this might be the future. This might be the guy. They want that moment when the guy comes out like Darian Durant did in Hamilton in 2008. And we go, wow, okay, Who's this guy? Where he's from? North Carolina. I thought they played basketball. What? They play foot? They have a football team there too. Oh, okay. And like that's the type of guy that they get. But we haven't seen it. We were hoping it was Jake Dolegala, but when he played, it's not like he was blowing us away at all. We wanted him to, but the stats and the results weren't there. So we'll see on the quarterback play. We know Pipkin's the short yardage guy. He was awesome at short yardage last year, so they don't need Shea Patterson there. I'm surprised there's only one other guy, and it's not like Jack Cohn really lit anybody up on the film from Notre Dame as the quarterback, but who knows? I'm a bit disappointed. I'm a bit disappointed that there isn't more around the quarterback this year, that it's Shea Patterson and Mason Fine and Antonio Pipkin and Jake Cohn, who I don't know, he's not that athletic of a dude for the Canadian Football League.
Just for the record, I will not put up with your North Carolina quarterback slander.
Mm-hmm.
I am
Sorry about
begging on the health of a North Carolina quarterback right now.
Could be worse.
The
Broncos.
It's gonna be a rough year for the Patriots.
I don't even know who. I don't even know who the. By the way, I don't even know who the Raiders quarterback is anymore. What do we got now? We're going with friggin' Gardner Minshew, for crying out loud, or
Minshew
Aiden
mania.
O'Connell.
Yeah, come on.
Hey, he won me. He helped win me my 2 quarterback league last year. Okay, so that's how great.
Uncle Rico's made for Vegas,
Gardner
man.
Minshew.
He's made for Vegas.
Hey, man, you can throw it over that mountain, so why not? Let's go.
As a Packers fan, I don't understand these questions about who your starting quarterback is. Hasn't happened for 30 years. Not going to happen now.
Yeah, neither have championships. So what's your point?
That works for the other two in this conversation, not so much for the Packers.
I guess.
What do you mean?
I've seen
The Raiders have plenty of Super Bowls. Plenty. They have 3. They got 3 Super Bowls. None of them that I remember watching but they exist. They're at the facility.
Corey Mace. Talked about him wanting violence, wanting, badass guys on this team, guys that are going to throw their weight around, all that kind of stuff. You've spoken to him numerous times. After talking to him like you have, what do you see him bringing the Riders that was missing over the last couple of years?
Right away, an attitude that he's the leader. Like I don't think there's any question. When he presents Nick Weeb the jersey on the stage at the Dog's Breakfast, Nick Weeb is like, "Let's go!" And a couple F-bombs here and there too, and he relates well to the players. He not to slag Craig Dickinson. I hate the whole he wasn't a player thing. Like, yes, he played football and he was a kicker and he was around, but in the CFL there is Corey Mace brings that, and especially a recent player in the Canadian Football League. And it's instantly when he walks into a room and he's the head coach, he's the head coach. Like, I thought, I personally felt Craig had way too many players be able to walk on him. The Nick Marshall thing 2 years ago on Instagram, and he like, "Oh, you didn't tell that to the room," or "I wish you would have said that to the room," telling the media, not to us. And then he apologized when Craig Dickinson said we suck. Like, yeah, we're not a good football team. And that was the quote. Nick Marshall gets upset, and then he apologizes to the players for it. They owned him. They absolutely owned Craig Dickinson in that room. And it showed. It showed on the field. There was zero accountability. He let Garrett Marino walk around that facility like he was one of the guys and a good guy, and we're going to love him up and all that. No, you don't love those guys up. The guy broke another competitor's leg and celebrated like a buffoon on the field. That's the guy you bye, see you later. That's not the person you want representing your club or leading you anywhere. He's not going to lead you to a championships, but Corey Mace, he's a loyal guy. He is intense. But He hasn't won a game. He hasn't lost a game. That reputation will be found out in the next year or two when you go, okay, they actually follow this man. I like to think they will. I think he's got what it takes to do it because everybody that I talk to around the league who has come across Corey Mace loves Corey Mace. They have tons of respect for him. This is journalists, reporters, players, coaches, general managers. They love this guy. He is a great guy. And what did he do in Toronto? He led a pretty darn good defense with the Toronto Argonauts. There's no doubt about that. Defensive line in Calgary he led was a pretty darn good defensive line in Calgary that he led. And I don't think that's a coincidence. He just knows how to inspire, and I'll be interested to see camp. I can't wait to get there on Sunday for the main camp just to watch how he runs his business. Because I'll be honest, you guys probably know this. I hated Craig Dickinson's training camps. I hated his practices. They were the slowest, most mind-numbing things I've ever witnessed in my life compared to the competitive Chris Jones's practices.
You worked with me for a while.
No, there's nothing mind-numbing about that whatsoever. But no, there wasn't actually. I was trying to think. I was like, no, I can't. I was probably more mind-numbing than anything else. But yeah,
cheese ball throwing competition. That wasn't mind-numbing.
Oh man, I miss those big buckets of cheese balls so much now. Thanks for bringing that up.
The look on your face. You came back from holidays and you had one of those big buckets of cheese balls under your desk, and there was a significant amount missing, and you're like, what the hell, who ate my cheese balls? And I had to tell you, yeah, Woodsy was doing that. You're like,
of course he was.
Damn it, Woodsy.
But who could resist a gigantic barrel of cheese balls? But yeah, for Corey Mace, he is a leader. He just feels like a leader. I'm also like Mark Mueller. I'm also interested in seeing what that offense will look like, how he runs it. There is some hiccups with him running the offense in Calgary. But that was him running Dave Dickinson's offense, not Mark Mueller running Mark Mueller's offense, which is, I can understand there's probably going to be some hiccups because Dave's going to knock on your door and go, no, you should probably do it my way rather than your way. And Mark won't have that. He can do it his way now.
Well, geez, clock's getting to us. That's the opening kickoff presented by Kathy Festian of Royal LePage General Realty. Let's jump to the Churchill Brewing Company odds and end zones. I gotta say, Rider fans, as you know, Jamie, you talk to them every single day on your show on the Green Zone. We're a patient and rational bunch.
Since when?
Listen, like I'm trying to. Okay, well, we're not patient. We're not rational. No doubt, obviously, with a new coaching staff in place, first-time head coach, there's going to be some growing pains. How much time will and how much time should Rider fans give Corey Mace if the team doesn't get off to a hot start?
Okay. How much? Let me start with should. How much time should they give Corey Mace? I would give Corey Mace. Now, I need to ask you a question. Like, when you say how much time should they give him? Like, until they start calling for him to get fired?
No, I'm not saying for him to get fired. But until things are like, I mean, because when
you start going,
be the change,
is
right?
this actually working? Like one of those?
On a scale of 1 to Greg Marshall, where are we on this?
We're probably more into the Craig Dickinson range on patience. I think you should give him the first year. Like you give him a year to see what he can establish and see how it ends, because you never know how it's going to end. You could sputter out of the gate like Montreal last season, sputtered out of the gate and then kind of found their legs and went on with Jason Moss and won the Grey Cup. And not saying they're going to win the Grey Cup. That's not what I'm saying, but it could be one of those. So you got to be patient into the first year to see how it all goes and how they match up, and is he being out coached, and how does he manage the game? And these are all learning things he's going to have to learn throughout the season. Now, how much time will Rider Nation have? I'm guessing more like the Greg Marshall, like 9 games in, 8 games in. If they're like 1-7, it's going to be, this is a disaster. What is happening? We hired the wrong guy. Get rid of him. Hire Mark Mueller to be the next head coach. Like, that's probably not the majority of the fan base, but I'll hear it on the post-game show. I might hear it after game 1, to be quite honest. I wouldn't be surprised. There's always at least one.
I've already said if the Riders don't win the Grey Cup by the end of quarter 1, this entire thing has been a failure.
Oh, you need to see him come out of the gate like Darian Durant in 2015 before his Achilles, where it was like 2 touchdowns and boom, 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 and here we go. And if that doesn't happen, it's a write-off.
Yeah.
See, there's the rational fan right there by Greg. Rational. Yeah. Very patient.
Greg and rational. That is not a comparison I think we've ever heard on this show. A little scary. Now, earlier this week, the 2024 class, Hall of Fame class was announced, and it had a fairly heavy Rider tone to it. Weston Dressler, Vince Goldsmith, Ray Yawk, obviously Chad Owens, S.J. Green, Marvin Coleman. What are your thoughts on the class or the Hall of Fame class from a Rider perspective?
Oh, well, right away, I saw Vince Goldsmith's name, and I love Vince Goldsmith. Like, he was my favorite Rough Rider in the late 80s, around that 89 team. You can have your Bobby Jurison. I was a Vince Goldsmith guy. It was, I don't know why, don't know what it was, but he was the guy. But so I was happy to, and I'm thinking 130 sacks. How did it take 30 years
How is
to get
he
him
not
in the
in yet?
Canadian Football Hall of Fame?
I assumed he was in until I saw the announcement. I'm like,
like, well, next time I see Daryl Davis, who's on the voting committee, I'm going to like, really? It took you 30 years for the guy with 130 sacks to go in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. And you're the Saskatchewan guy on the, like, what is happening with that one? So, and it was interesting, the correlation between he and Weston Dressler. There's only 2 Rough Riders ever to be rookies of the year. And here they are in the same class. And they were like so many years apart. It was insane. Like 20 years apart or 28 years apart or whatever it was in their careers. But Weston, of course, there's so many memories of Weston Dressler and his big catches, diving catches. That game that I mentioned with Darian Durant and Hamilton, kind of their coming out party, and the catch near the end of the Grey Cup in 2013 that pretty much sealed it. Like, there's so many great memories there. Chad Owens, who was a pseudo special teams coordinator when he was the return guy for a bit in Saskatchewan for his cup of coffee, but a great CFLer. Ray Yawk, not known for his Rough Rider days of coaching, of course, but a great CFL, a legendary coach, Grey Cup champion, right? Similar to Chad Owens, it's like not really known for their Rider days or anything like that, but I was happy to especially see Vince Goldsmith and Weston Dressler get the call.
And how about Steve Daniel going in the media side of things? That is your go-to guy for everything stats wise. That's pretty cool that they put him in. I like that.
Yeah. When Daryl let me know on where we were going with I was like, Farhan, of course, is an insider, great guy, has been around Canadian football, coaching it as well. Out in Vancouver. But when he said Steve Daniel, I was like, right on. Like, that is a guy, Alex knows. It's like, oh, I'll just email Steve for this stat and the history of it. And he'll get back to you right away with the best knowledge he can have, or have it bang on what exactly you're looking for. And he makes a lot of reporters look smart. And so that's why he's going into the media wing of the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. And he's a CFL historian. He is going back through old games to make sure the stats are accurate from those old games, because they're all just written on paper. Like, he's told me some of the writing that people have written down on a play. It's like, what happened? Like they didn't even put a tackle on who got the tackle or anything. So he's going back and trying to. He's the real genius when it comes to stats with the Canadian Football League is Steve Daniel.
But does he cost as much?
I guarantee he does not get paid what he should because he probably is left a lot on the table from what you could pay Steve Daniel for the work he's done with the stats in the Canadian Football League, only to have some American company just completely tear it to shreds.
All right. Normally we'll make mention of the signings that the Riders have. They signed their entire draft class, but basically everybody's come to training camp. We know this. I'm really intrigued by this global punter, Joe Couch. I'm not going to lie. I said that's probably where he's going to watch the majority of the football games because Adam Korsak was just phenomenal last year. Do you see one of the new global punters out kicking Korsak? No.
No.
Okay.
Not a chance. Adam Korsak was great. He was like the top special teams player with Mario Alford last year. Like the one thing you're worried about, maybe you're signing these guys is like, is he going to leave to the National Football League? Like, do we not know something? Because I thought he was that darn good. The way he worked the ball and it was fantastic to watch. And I didn't really mind Kari Vedvik, but then you saw Adam Korsak and you went, okay, yeah, he's better. Unless this guy is like Cody Grace and, our friend Danny Austin in Calgary's new favorite player in the CFL. I don't see him usurping Adam Korsak.
Danny Austin's favorite player would be a punter. Absolutely.
He loves Cody Grace. He thinks he's the greatest thing maybe in CFL history. Like
I wouldn't know anymore, but I digress.
We had Eddie Johnson. We had Jamie Borum was excellent. There's been some good ones.
Okay, here's my thing. Like I've already deemed this as the global kicker era. Are we done with North American like standard kicking? Is it all Aussie style now or what?
Well, you can see why. Like the Aussie style works beautifully in the CFL with the wide field. It really does. And more teams are just going to go to it because you're going to see more teams drop two returners back and try to adapt that way. And then if you do that, well, then the punter's just going to hammer it. But I think it works great for the Canadian Football League. So all you Canadian punters out there, start playing Aussie rules football. That is my advice. And maybe you too. Or
learn to play
to Australia, get an Australian passport, and then they'll bring you to Canada as a global player.
Now we saw the news that Milt Stegall was.
Are we done with the CFL 2.0? Anyways,
whatever happened to the Gridiron Football Association, or whatever the hell it was called? They still own the trademark on it. I was just doing a trademark fishing expedition today. They still own the trademark for that.
Oh, that announcement at Grey Cup a few years ago.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that news conference.
So did the CFL.
Yeah, the LFA, the some Swedish league. Whatever happened to that? Someone get Randy on the blower. Let's find out what's going on.
Yeah.
So we saw Milt Stegall was is going to day one training camp with the Bombers. He's going to do some drills, line up against rookies. Who's the rider great that you would love to see line up against some rookies at camp?
The Milt Stegall thing reminded me so much of when Matt Dominguez tried to have a comeback. And I'll never forget being at his workout, watching Matt Dominguez. And he wasn't 54. Like he was only out of the game for like a year and a half. And Ken Miller brought him in. We'll see how he works out. And the media, I don't know why they thought it a good idea that they do it in front of us. But I was like, this is painful to watch because his knees were shot. He was huffing and puffing down the field. And I'm like, once you're done, you're done. So Yeah, I'm interested. I just hope Milt doesn't tear an Achilles. Like, I really hope that he's not carted off the field in Winnipeg. I know there's Rider fans who would probably laugh if Milt Stegall was carted off the field in Winnipeg, but I love Milt Stegall. I think he's great on the panel. He's opinionated. He's exactly what you want. But the Rider person for Milt Stegall to make a comeback has to be Belton Johnson. That is the guy that needs to be on the football field.
Man, we're coming up on summer. He's too busy smoking stuff. Meat, of course. He's too busy with the
Let's
barbecue.
be specific on that one.
Yeah. Barbecue. He's too busy barbecuing right now to worry about a football comeback. But I think we joked about that a couple weeks ago on the show here. Just why don't we just toss Belton Johnson back out there at left tackle? Every other American tackle has not worked out for this team. Belton's and Xavier Fulton are the last two ones that really, stuck around.
Do you know who probably wants to have another go? How about we get Robert Mims on the field with Deshaun in the same camp? Can we make that happen? Like, how about Robert makes a comeback to try to run the rock alongside AJ?
Father-son tag team.
Well, he had that 2 years off and then came back and then still led the league in rushing. Like, I mean, what's another 30-year difference?
Yeah, why not? Let's go.
All right, Jamie, final one for you before we let you go. Saskatchewan Roughriders 2024. We won't get a prediction, but what are your expectations for this team on the field?
I only have one expectation, and that's competitive. That's it. That's my only expectation for this team, that they show up and they compete. And there's no quitters. There's no lollygaggers. There's no, Nick Marshalls who look like they're part-timers. Like a full-time competitive team. It can be, maybe it's a 3, 4, 5 win season, but they are in games and they're showing, okay, there's something to go watch. Because I'll be honest, like, were you guys really revved up to go watch Rider home games last year? Like, it felt like, this is going to be, how is this going to be end? Like, how are they going to lose this one? And they completely, what happened against Hamilton on the George Reed thing should never happen again with Corey Mace. Like, that was a team that quit and had given up. And that is my only expectation, is to have the compete that Corey Mace is preaching, that every down they're going to be in your face and aggressive. And that's my expectation. Does that mean more wins? I certainly hope so, because I like covering playoff football.
Will this be the year we finally get a win after Labor Day?
Yes, absolutely. I'll guarantee one thing: they will win a game after Labor Day this season. That will happen for you, Steve. I guarantee it.
That's a bold prediction. Prediction.
They might even win a game in October too. Who knows?
Whoa.
Whoa. Easy.
One step at a time
Pump
here.
the brakes. Yeah,
Let's not get Rider Nation too revved up.
Well, it should be a very interesting year here in Riderville. Of course, you're going to get all the opinions from listeners on post-game shows, and I can't wait. Even after the preseason game, people start, overreacting over preseason, and I can't wait to tune into that.
Some people buy jerseys.
Like a Keith Toaston
Keith
jersey.
Toaston, baby. Yeah. Keith Toaston, baby.
I still stand
Steve,
that
where
was
is
the biggest mistake the Riders ever made. I sold that thing for $300. Somebody actually bought it off me.
Yeah. that
I wasn't
actually was worth it.
I've never said yes to anything more in my life.
$300?
$300. 42 was his favorite number.
Was it Keith Toaston?
I don't even think he wanted it.
I thought you just would get it ripped off and put Moncrief on the back, but
that's what I would have done if the guy didn't want it, but no.
That is the greatest value money back I've ever heard in my life for anything. Yeah, I'm impressed. That's just good salesmanship right there.
I wish I could take credit for it. I mean, I did, but
You didn't get the ROI back on your what was it, Corey Williams? Was that the other one you got?
yeah, that one is collecting dust in the closet.
Hey, I bought in on him too. I bought in on him hard.
We all
Yeah, absolutely. I thought he was going to be
In
the
fairness-
next I thought he was going to be the next Pre-Shea Rodriguez.
My favorite Corey Williams story though was we were sitting at a tailgate at the place we tailgate at, and this car pulls a super fast U-Ball, and we see him get out of the car. He walks across the street with the marker. He goes, "Are you wearing a Corey Williams jersey?" Like, yeah. I didn't even know what he looked like at that point. Want me to sign it for you? Like, sure. Just out of nowhere, just
Are you
pulled
sure?
a U-Ball in
Are
front
you
of the
sure
house.
it was Corey Williams?
Yep. Yeah, I confirmed it later
Okay.
on. But yep. that is the highlight of his career in Saskatchewan was, that's it. My Weston
Let's be honest,
Dressler
Rider
and Cor-
fans will buy any
Gone
jersey. You know how
better.
many Vince Young jerseys I've seen after they signed him?
2.
I've seen more than that. Like
They sold out of them in that training camp. They had that Rider store cart there lingering around with the Vince Young jersey. They sold out of them. He didn't even make it to the green and white game, for crying out loud. And they sold those jerseys.
Oh, the Chris Jones era. What a time to be alive.
Glory days, baby. I love that era so much. There was never a dull day at all with Chris Jones.
and the stories that no one can tell on air. Speaking
One day there will be a book about the Chris Jones era in the CFL, and that is going to be a must read.
And Rob Van
Yeah.
Stone will write it.
No, Rob Van Stone would not write that book.
No,
He would
I think
write
Daryl
that
Davis
book.
is more likely to write it than Rob
Rob's
Van
way
Stone.
too nice.
I'm going with who would be a good author of that book? I would love Danny Austin would be an amazing author of that book, because Danny Austin, the stories he can pull from people behind the scenes is pretty. Or Jeff Hamilton. Jeff Hamilton might write a good one
be
too.
good on that one, actually.
And they pull no punches either. Like they would let it all out too. That would be great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, it should be a very interesting season. Jamie, thanks for joining us here and taking a look at training camp and giving us an inside look at the Rough Riders.
Well, thanks for the invite. And hey, Steve, guarantee you, man, a win after Labor Day. It's happening in 2024. Or I'll buy you a new Keith Toston jersey.
Ah, beautiful.
Wow. So we're keeping that one on the air.
I'm coming collecting if they don't.
Yeah, I kind of want to see that happen in a weird, sick way.
They can win all the way up to Labor Day and then just coast in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, Piffles Podcast, of course, brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. Special thanks, of course, to Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty and Churchill Brewing Company for their support, making this show possible. This is Tyler Gilbert.
One second. I need to send Jamie a special message.
And also, thank you for being such a big supporter and fan of the CFL and myself personally.
And now we're